talk about the class being drinking from a fire hydrant. Woo-hoo-hoo. That was drinking from the fire hydrant. What did you get from it? What was your takeaway? Besides, whoa, then, after that, then what was your takeaway? What did you hear? Did you hear this class in conference?
Yes.
What did you hear?
I heard a lot about trials and tribulations and that they're going to come and that they're like, if you haven't already experienced them, get ready because they will, and everyone will, I don't know, just everyone will have trials.
And so did that make you hopeful or scared?
We've already had some trials, so I'm like, well, we made it through what we did get through, so, I mean, it's just prepare. This kind of made me feel like, okay, this is your downtime, so you need to kind of prepare and build up your faith and build up whatever, be ready for the next thing.
You're not over yet. It's a
Start
roller
over
coaster.
before you
You may
get
be at the
it.
bottom. You're going to go. Yeah, yeah, yes.
Along with that, I kind of, fear, just, having faith in Christ, be not afraid, and, through our trials and everything else, that's, I'm kind of that, I'm afraid, or, I worry so much, and I know that we need to have faith in Christ, but it was just, it just really hit home this time.
Okay, awesome. So you're a worrier.
I'm a worrier.
Okay. Yes.
So I heard relying more on the Holy Ghost, re-emphasizing that. I heard forgiveness, being kind to others, re-emphasis on that. And along with moving to a 2-hour block of church, just a kind of a re-emphasis on shifting responsibility to us as individuals.
Very good. Yes.
That's what I felt a lot, is that sense of responsibility to live more by the spirit of the law than the letter of the law. So, and bringing more teaching into the home was awesome to be back in this class, because I've got a lot more to be held accountable for now, and as far as teaching in my home. So, yeah, it's that more responsibility and the spirit of the law.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
I felt a great urgency of how important it is purposeful teaching in the home. Not just teaching in the home, but purposeful, that I need to be planning and I need to be knowing what I'm going to teach and be prepared for anything. Just more focused.
Righteous, intentional.
Yep.
Again, righteous, intentional. Yes. Yes.
I feel I should represent the males in the
I
room.
think you should.
Along with this being spiritually prepared and stuff my wife was talking about, that was huge. But the physical side, I am so ready for a new adventure. In Iraq, with war, it was, yes, hard but fun. And so I am ready for a new physical adventure, whether it's, tons of people coming in the valley and helping them, whether it's moving to the mountains, and I am ready for a new adventure. So I was excited.
You and I have a different idea of fun. Fun. But I think that's awesome, because I want you there when the fun begins. I want you on my side. Yeah.
I love the talk when you talk about traditions and how important it was. And
I
how
was so excited about that.
I was thinking of you when you said that.
Well, that really was a good one for me. Yes.
For me, I'll cry because that's what I do, but a tender mercy for me was Sister Ballard having passed away, because my dad just passed away, and there was a lot of stuff touched upon in terms of the spirit world and in terms of just the beauty and acceptance of someone passing on through the veil. And so I went to Utah to watch conference with my mom, and there was just so many words of kindness that I think she was able to pull in, because it's just barely been a month since my dad passed away, and so it's really fresh. And I really appreciate it. There was a lot of references to Sister Ballard, and there was a lot. I saw someone post something about before the 10-day fast started, but there was so much talk about death, what's going to happen to what's going on, and I just, for us that have had a lot of death in our family over the last year, it was really nice to have the references to that. But that's something that's tender for the people that are going through it. And then what I really loved was at the end when President Nelson, I wrote it down, I can't remember the exact words, but when he said that if you follow the counsel in this conference, Satan's
also to attend the temple.
Yes.
So attend the temple, and Satan's influence will be, and you'll increase in revelation and inspiration through temple attendance. Exactly. Exactly. It's temple's the peaceful place in turbulent times. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
I got a lot out of, especially the women's portion of it about motherhood and being a mother. And I know several women in the last couple of years that are about my age that have abandoned that role and left their families. And it has been really surprising for me to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that reaffirmation that this is the most important thing is our families. And as women, we have so much to offer, and it's important. Nothing else matters, really.
Yeah.
So
It
I love
is.
that.
It is our calling. It is.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes.
I like the word she used, reaffirmation. I didn't hear anything terribly new. I just got strengthened in the things we already know, and that the Lord does not change his mind. We don't have to worry about swaying with the world, because the Lord has said what he has said, and they reaffirmed those things.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Andrew.
I think the thing I found interesting, they talked a lot about ministering again, which made sense, but that was one of my questions that I had taken was, how do I do that better? And one of the things that I heard that I thought was really interesting is that temple work is ministering on the other side of the veil. So doing temple work, whether it's in your home or at the temple, that's ministering just as much as anything else. So I thought that that was really interesting, because that's something that I do include my children in, and so I am pulling them into that and teaching them how to do that.
Perfect. Anybody else get that? Yes.
Well, everything that everybody said, I agree with. But I loved at the very end when he announced the 12 temples. It just makes me feel so excited every time he announces temples, or any prophet when they announce a temple. But I love it that it's changed now to where they cheer when they announce a temple. 'Cause that's so awesome. I remember I grew up in Alaska and we didn't have a temple there forever. And it was a pretty good little trip to go to the temple. And I remember when they announced ours, we felt like cheering. So I'm kind of glad. Some people might feel like it's irreverent. But that's how we felt when our temple was announced. And so, you know, I just love it. And there were temples, and a lot of them are obscure places where we don't have temples yet. And so, those blessings.
I think one of the purposes of the temple, so many temples being built, is that they will be then ready when the millennium comes. That, I mean, we know the work then is just going to increase. And so, temples have to be here, not being, I mean, we need to have them in place. And it's so exciting. We're getting ready. We're getting ready. It's coming. I'm excited for it.
I kind of find it interesting that the focus has gone from building church building to building temples. I kind of feel like that they're consolidating so that the temples can be built on Mount Zion, and that we can have more. Anyway.
Yes, yes. Anyone else? Yes, yes.
Sorry.
No,
and
I'm sorry.
Another thing is that, well, and you always say this too, that the principles of the gospel are still the same. The practices, we're changing, they're changing the practices and how we do it, but the principles are still the same. The focus is still the same. We're just kind of adjusting how to do it and make things, I don't know, better for this time, because it's different than it used to be. And we're not living in the same world that we were before when we did things that way. That's why they're changing them. But the principles are still the same. Our focus.
The gospel is the same. It remains the same. Practices are changing. Some of you, no, maybe two of us, remember, maybe three of us, remember when church was during the week. And you went 3 times on Sunday. And you went a different day, a Tuesday afternoon for primary, and you went Wednesday morning for Relief Society, and then they started having evening meetings for Relief Society. I mean, we went to church multiple times during the week, and then they consolidated it to the 3-hour block, and some of us went, whoa, that's amazing. And now they're consolidating 3 to 2. But it was interesting, if you went back and read the purpose of why they consolidated from all of these weekly meetings to the 3-hour block, it's the same as the purpose for consolidating from 3 hours to 2 hours. The purpose is the same.
In one men's conference, the prophet encouraged us to read the Relief Society Declaration and theme and to apply it in our family. And as I sat down to look through that and kind of study it and get an idea, it's some of the things that I had put in, we as a family had put into our family declaration or our family motto. And it was kind of really exciting to see that yeah, maybe we are going the right direction and doing the right things as a family, and that my kids came up with these things anyway, it was just kind of a happy
Have you
moment.
noticed that My Gospel Standards, which they have in primary, change that to the Young Women's theme, then change that to the Relief Society Declaration, and the same principles carry through. I mean, obviously, but just interesting the level, the primary level to the Relief Society level. It's fabulous, and that he said that he had that on his wall in his office might be an invitation to do something besides just read it, put it in a place where you could read it often. I thought that was very interesting that he would have that on the wall in his office. Yes?
That sounds silly, but I was thinking about all the conference talks that we were hearing, and I'm like, it's like they're preparing us for war. And then I thought about Captain Moroni and how he started spiritually preparing his people that they would be faithful to their God, and then he was armoring them, making sure that they had armor, and they were building timbers of wood with forts to fortify their homes. And in my head, that scripture came to mind, that he was fortifying the saints and trying to get us to sanctify ourselves, and that we can hear revelation and also protecting our homes and teaching our children. And that impression just sat upon my head. I was like, huh, they're preparing us for war. And it's like there's spiritual warfare. There's the world that we live in, and so much is changing, and it's interesting to see how they're turning and trying to have teaching in the home and strengthening the home and just a shift of things. And I was just like, wow, that's really.
That's why he calls
I
it
feel
his
more
youth
so
battalion.
more like that now.
Yeah, awesome. Good. Yes.
I would just rewind a little. Preparing for conference, Thursday, I got a bee in my bonnet and took my boys to the temple for temple baptisms, just to
Awesome.
prepare for the weekend. And so we did that with my 3 boys. And I don't know, I'm sure it made a difference. It made a difference for me. I put me more in the mood, so hopefully it worked for me.
Well, that's a wonderful idea. Wonderful.
I found it interesting in the women's conference. One of the sisters said, and it struck me, people are not a distraction. They're the purpose of my life. And I immediately thought about how often I see moms on their social media ignoring the kids in various places. And I totally get that we needed to check out sometimes and just do something for ourselves. So I'm not, bagging on that so much, but I see the extreme also. And I see that within my own family at times where kids need a focus. They need attention. They need to be redirected. But a mom is focused somewhere else. And so I saw the correlation in families along with those we serve in the church. People should not be a distraction. They should be our purpose. But then follow that up with the prophet asking us to do the 10-day fast. And I was like, what? Because I saw that correlation. And the focus needs to be centered on personal relationships. But the other thing that I really felt so strongly was that we have the right for increase, but we have to ask for it. An increase of spirit, an increase of understanding, an increase of love. And it's just really interesting that they're giving us the tools, if we just read between the lines, of how to deal with this oncoming onslaught that we feel is coming. And that they're giving us the foundations and the tools to build ourselves and to help us have that eternal power that is there waiting for us to ask for it.
Oh, yes, and I love that quote. That one jumped out at me too, because you're right. People are the purpose. And this fast, when they asked the youth to do it, the mothers were all, oh, that's so good. That's so exciting. Oh, I'm so glad. Now when they ask us to do it, sometimes that's a little bit of a different picture, but it will be interesting if you truly do it. Do you remember? To have the 10-day fast was only the first prong of that challenge, invitation. The second one was, not that. The second part of that particular
And to pray
challenge,
about the things you need to get rid of.
to do that, but I think, and I hate guessing games, so yeah, I'm sorry, but it was at the end, evaluate what was the difference in your life. What happened? Where did you put your time? Did you feel like you were freed up? Did you feel like maybe all of the media, movies or whatever we watch aren't that important, aren't that uplifting, and that maybe we would just as soon keep them out of our lives? So it's good to do the fast, but if you don't follow through and focus on evaluating the difference, the change, just to say, okay, I did it, and then to take up with your old ways, is not what he had intended. It was for you to discover something new about those 10 days, and then think about which side do you want to live on? Which side of that do you want to be on? And I'm not saying that there's not really good things that happen in social media. The church is using it in a marvelous way. So there are fabulous things that happen with social media. And I think his question is, how are you using it? And that's what your 10-day fast is to discover, is how do I personally, and nobody else can make that evaluation for you. You have to make it for yourself.
In June when Prophet talked to our youth, my boys came home and they're like, check, because they don't have social media. My 15-year-old was like, well, that's an easy thing to get rid of. And so I challenged them, like, so what else in your life is a distraction? And we had a good discussion about that. And because my boys are readers, they love to read. I'm like, well, what are you reading? Like, don't just check off and say, the Prophet told us to get rid of social media for 7 days. And anyways, this conference, actually I thought of you multiple times as we're going through, as the talks were going on. I'm like, traditions, check. The legs of the table, check. I just thought it was very fascinating that so many of the things I've learned from you were reiterated again and again. The importance of traditions and how positive and spiritual influences can be made from those traditions. So that was something that stuck with me, because I have not been doing very well in our traditions. So I'm like, maybe we should make that.
Just look at them, see, But I went to conference. Actually, one of the questions that I took to conference is, literally, am I on target with this class? Because that's I don't want to teach it if I'm not on target. And that confirmation came. There's so many of the things that we're talking about that are on target. And so I feel like this is the course. This is what we need to be doing. So that to me was one of the things that I had to answer. And I had a few calls to repentance too. That was a good one.
How do you feel about that?
You know what? I was so thrilled.
It was freeing.
It was
to
freeing.
hear them say it in conference.
Yes, to say, have it. Just have it.
Just have it. whenever
Just
it comes.
have it. Not Monday night at 7 o'clock, but just have it. That was one that I went, yes, the spirit, not the letter. It was wonderful. That was exciting to me, really exciting to me.
That was part of what I was thinking too, because we heard the 2-hour block, but then did we hear that other part with family home evening? And I was really excited about that for a couple of reasons, because if you look back in the scriptures, when Heavenly Father gave the commandments to the children of Israel, he was very, very strict and very structured. Like, you do this many steps, like very, very strict, very structured. And then after Christ came, some of that eased up a little bit. Not that the commandment was gone, but the strictness of it was gone. They wanted you to follow more of the law. And I think that that's what I saw happen with conference, with the family home evening part, is that it went from being on Monday nights to just have it, but leave Monday nights open for a family activity.
Yes. They're just so freeing. There's so many women that have come and said, my husband works on Monday night, and, he has evenings, and what do we do? And wanting to obey the commandment, and wanting to obey the letter and the spirit of the law. And this way, it's okay. Dad can be at home evening. Do it on Sunday night. Do it. Just do it. I was particularly, one of my takeaways was, I don't think I've ever seen a prophet, and I've probably been through more than you have, more intense in delivering a message than President Nelson was about the name of the church. That was unequivocal, it was intense, it was focused. And then I loved that he said it, but he said it before. And obviously we're not doing it well enough, that he said it again, but this time he reiterated why we should do it. And the importance of keeping Jesus Christ at the center of his church, but also I think the center of our commitment in his church, and taking away, there's a difference between being active in the church, and I think that kind of went along with the Mormon church, being active in the church and attending all the activities and having a calling and doing it, and being converted to the gospel. There's a difference between your heart in being active and attending all the time and being converted and attending all the time. And I think that conversion comes when our heart is focused on Jesus Christ. That becomes, and so it would be, of course we would call it the Church of Jesus Christ, because that's where your heart and soul is focused. And then I felt very strongly that conference then laid out the groundwork that not only the church's name is focused on Jesus Christ, but our homes are focused on Jesus Christ. And I felt grateful to be able to do this class, because to me, this is to help focus our homes on parenting and making Christ-centered homes. And I feel like that's the whole movement of the 2-hour block. I think that's going to be the whole movement of this Come Follow Me resource that we don't have yet, so we can't really look at it yet. But
It's online.
It's
It's online. You can get it.
I just mean tangible in the home. Yes, it is there, but this tangible, have it in your home, your children can feel it, you can touch it, you can, that kind of feeling. And implementing that weekly, supplementing our sacrament, which is the key for Sunday, to partake of the sacrament, that all of this is to bring the Savior central. I wish I had brought the quote, and I didn't, and maybe I'll give it to Andrea when she goes off her fast. But it said, the proclamation on the family was given about 10 years before all of the gay movement started and wanting gay marriages. And so the picture of the family, the way the Lord would have it, is exact. And it's not, and then we love those people, but the picture of the family is the Lord's picture. And then he said in this quote, he said he felt like the giving of the living Christ would be just as essential as the proclamation of the family was, that it is there. So I think as we go in to these more turbulent times, you will see Satan trying to minimize, and he already has, but you'll see it more prominently. This is Tanner 101. This is Tanner 101. So, but I think you'll see Satan minimizing the divinity of Jesus Christ. And that your children, and I would say your children, maybe your grandchildren, depending on how old your children are, but we'll see a lot of demeaning to them if they hold that there is divinity in the Savior. That will become a social thing. And I think at that point is when we have to have that document that said that it testifies of the living Christ to help fortify testimonies. I think that's why we say, yes, I believe in the Savior. But I think that our bombardment of that testimony is going to intensify as we come down to the final seconds of this last hour. And I think that we truly have to have the Savior, Jesus Christ, focused not just in the title of the church, but in our hearts and in our homes and in everything that we do, that we will stand on that sure foundation and not be blown away when the winds and the rains and the tribulations are going to hit us. And they're starting, but it's going to intensify. And if we are founded on that cross, on that foundation, on the Savior, as we see this, actually, it's going to be exciting. We're going to be joyful. We're going to say, let's go to war. I'm ready. I got my backpack on, and let's go to war. Because we will know, we will surely know whose side we are fighting on. And that's what I took away from conference, is that we must build on that sure foundation. I was not surprised, but touched that even the Tabernacle Choir has changed their name. You know, and they just did it very recently, just before conference they did it. So they are no longer the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They are now the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. So I thought, you know, how blessed to see in small ways the example of following the prophet. And that's where I think we have to take it in our own lives. So your homework, number 1. And see, I have to give these when I'm thinking about it, else I'll forget. Is I want you to listen to, take notes on, meaning a to-do list, of President Nelson's talk in the women's session. The one he gave in the women's session. And specifically, as you read that, you'll find lots of things for you personally. The Spirit will speak to you personally. But I'm just going to put one thing on your to-do list that may not jump out and grab you. So I will help it by assignment. He said, and he said it in a rather intense invitation, if you will, that he would hope that each of us would pray to know our own personal spiritual gifts and then cultivate them, expand them, and he said, as you do so, and I'm sure he means collectively, but we have to do it individually before the impact is collective, that we would change the world. I want to be on that train. And so even though you may feel like your contribution is small, if you pray, number one, to know what it is, and then how to cultivate it and expand it, he will tell you. It's like being in a totally dark room and one person lights a candle, there's light. So if one person expands their spiritual gifts, it increases the light. But if you put everybody in this room, in the dark room with a candle, you're talking about some big light. So as we all do it, each one of us brings light to a darkening world. And so he needs us to do that. He needs us to stop buying Satan's lies that says you personally, individually, don't have any value. Because you do. And you don't have to be a general authority or a Relief Society president or a bishop. Individually, if you light that light in your home, you're blessing generations. So my invitation is that you listen to his talk and then with real intent accept that part of his invitation. Boy, I'm already not very good for this day, so any comments on that?
I just noticed over and over again when he asked us to do something, he also made a promise right after.
That's right.
It was really powerful to me to say, do this and you will see this happen. And I just felt like every single time he spoke, with every invitation there was a promise attached to it.
And if you will go and I would recommend, of course, I'm an old-fashioned touch it, feel it, I gotta hold it, you know. I know all these talks are online, but I want mine that I can hold and pat and love and take with me everywhere I go. Yeah, I know you do because it's on your phone, but that, you know, I've got the old-fashioned in me. And so I would invite you to print out his final talk and underline, write down, record in your journal all of the blessings in that talk.
Last talk in the last conference?
Yes, his last talk was just full of apostolic, prophetic promises. And wow. Those are as valid as telling the children of Israel to look at the brass serpent and they would live. These promises are, that's what they are. It's exciting. Yes.
My kids, they always see me on my phone and they tell me I'm on my phone too much. So I really like having, the scriptures in my hands or, the invite in my hands or just a book in my hands so that my kids know exactly what I'm doing and they don't, they're not like, well, maybe she's playing a game or, they don't really know what I'm on my phone doing. So I like having it actually so they can see and know for sure
Yes.
what I'm doing.
Yes. I like mine just because I can read it better.
Yeah.
Hard copy.
I am old. I don't think I'm going to change
No,
much.
you're not.
I don't think I'm going to change much in the world from here on out, and I'll have to probably deal with those bridges when they come to me. But I wanted to relate with our children. I think when you said our actions will change the world, I see our children and I see potential general authorities. I see potential very great leaders, women and children.
Not just our children, just the generation.
No, mine. Anyway. No, I see others that come visit also, and I see potential, and I think it's amazing what our children are going to do, and I think that's where the key of how we're going to change the world.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Abraham Lincoln's mother. Did she change the world? You bet. Because of the influence she had on her son. Look at Lucy Mack Smith. Did she change the world? You bet. Look at how she taught her son to go to the Bible to find answers. And her You bet. But see, that's our problem is we think, okay, if I don't go do something heroic, then I'm not changing the world. But we are. If you change and build a strong home, you've changed the world. Every strong home influences the world.
I'm going back to what he said. That is a spiritual gift to be able to see that in someone and see that in your children. That was just a challenge she gave us to read what gifts, pray about the gifts that you have and then how to apply them, make them better, expand them. So run with that. That's what you see. Go, use it for good.
Absolutely. That is, and as you expand it, you will see that good in so many other people. And then you'll use today's lesson to know how to use that gift. So we're going to go on into today's lesson. I think that that clock up there is wrong. And if I go by that, we'll be here about an extra half hour. So I tend to go by that, so I'll have to watch my watch a little bit. Today we're going to talk about the power of helping others, your children, your spouse, helping others be their best self. And I think that perhaps that's what parenting's all about, is to help those around us be their best self. And I think usually as we think about that, what comes first into your mind is, and if you were looking in your syllabus, the topic that you'd be looking for would be discipline. How do we help them become their best self? And we think, okay, I need to discipline them so that they will stop doing wrong things and choose to do right things. But discipline isn't always the key. What we want to do is motivate them and encourage them to want, from the inside out, want to make righteous choices so we never have to discipline them. We want to help them learn to find that strength within themselves that they can get up again when they fail, that they can learn that failure is simply a step on the path to success. It's not translated as you're no good. We want them to have the courage to stand up for what's right, have that self-confidence within them to stand up for what's right and not be swayed so much by peer pressure. So one of the keys to being able to do that, instill that in your children, is your ability to encourage them, to give them courage, to encourage them to do that which is right. So if you're looking in your syllabus, you want to know where we are today, we're going to talk about praise and encouragement. Now, most parents, of course, want that as a goal for their children. And they feel like the avenue to get there is motivation, to be able to motivate them to want to try, to keep moving. What is one of our biggest frustrations? Is when they won't do anything. When they just sit there and want to read books or play videos or whatever, we can't get them to move. So we want to motivate them. And the key to that motivation is to give them self-courage. And that comes from encouraging them, giving them courage. Now, as parents, what we feel like we'll do that is when we say positives to them. That if we will give them a positive, that feeds them, and so that they will want to do good things, right? And we hear that positives and that validation will build their self-esteem. And as their self-esteem is built, then they will have more courage to try more things and do more things and make more mistakes. However, what did we learn last week in pride? If that self-esteem, the picture of self, how you esteem yourself, that picture of self, is developed or predicated on a reflection of how the world views you, then it's a faulty self-esteem. As a matter of fact, last week we called it pride. So, and it is very debilitating to find your value from a reflection of what comes in. Now, unknowingly, we raise our children, and some of you were raised absolutely addicted to that, so that your value is predicated on whether or not someone else says you're good. So if you get up in the morning and you want to know if you look good, if nobody says, whoa, you look really cute today, I love that shirt, wow, you're so cute, then you feel like, man, I just feel frumpy today. Well, or you feel like you give a talk or in sacrament meeting and nobody comes up. And by the way, nobody will on a 2-hour block. We're going to be moving. So, but nobody comes up and says, wowie, that was really a great talk. Then at the end you go, oh, did I go overtime? You know, that must not have. And we may not say it in words in our head, but our feelings are, ooh, that must not have been very good. Now, your children then, you can see it in you, and the reason you see it in you is because you were raised probably with praise. You were raised with your parents praising your good behavior and helping you feel guilty when you didn't do something right. And so when you're raised with guilt and praise, then you become very dependent on how others view you and their response to you. And you feel very, if you're raised with guilt, then you feel like, unless I get that outward praise, I'm not good enough. Does that make sense? So I can make a Christmas present for one of my kids and think it's really wonderful. And if they don't ooh and ah over it, then I think, oh, that wasn't very good, you know. I mean, I saw all the flaws in it. I saw all of the seams that weren't quite right. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't have. And think, oh, they don't really like it. I just know they don't like it. And so my reward or my value comes dependent on what they give back to me. Okay, I see a lot of you shaking your heads like you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so we as parents feel, and rightfully so, that we need to validate our children and say positives to them. But what we're going to cover today is whether or not that positive builds them or whether or not that positive hurts them is dependent on how we say it, on the verbiage, on what we say, how we say it. And so just for today, I am not a person that believes in semantics. I get upset when people argue over the meaning of a word. If you say to your husband, you never take out the garbage, and their response is, never? I never? You mean I've never? In 50 years, I have never? You know, I say, ugh, you missed the point. The point is you need to take out the garbage. So I hate it when we get hung up on a word and don't talk about meaning. So I'm going to define my meaning so that for just today, we can use the words understanding the grounds we're coming on. So for today, praise, that word, praise, we're going to use as a negative. Both of these are positives, giving out a positive. But we're going to use the word praise to describe the wrong way to give out a positive. And we're going to use the word encouragement to describe the right way to give out a positive. And we'll define them both, but just for the ability to, because we say, yes, we should praise our kids. We should praise our kids. And I'm not saying we shouldn't validate them. So I'm going to use that word just today in a negative way, as a negative. And the word encouragement will be to describe the positive. So let's talk about praise first, and talk about the kind of the definition and what it looks like, and so you can see a picture of it, and then we'll describe encouragement, and then I'm going to teach you how to use it, okay? Praise is a positive that you say, and frequently we will say it. Both praise and encouragement are given to build. We want them to build. They're both positives in your eyes. But praise is usually, let me just give you an example of praise, okay? If I was to come over to Ann, and I would say to Ann, you know, I have just been all over speaking in the church, and I think you are the best Relief Society president in this whole valley. Did you see her reaction? It was like, oh, that's silly. Now, I can truly mean it. My part of the statement is I've been all over the valley and I've seen a lot of relief societies. That's true. I have. And then if I could say, man, I think that you are one of the best that I've ever seen here in the valley, that could be true. But does she internalize it? Okay, and if I was to say that to you in the temple, we were walking around when I was at your Relief Society here a while back, what do you feel like inside when I say that?
At the temple?
Well, no, I won't say at the temple. I probably would have to speak the truth.
First, I'm not very good at receiving compliments. So I would tend to be like, oh, you're just kidding. You know, don't tell me stuff like that. But
can you internalize it?
I think I try to block it still. I don't think that it's, I mean, it's one thing to say specifically, you do this.
Okay, no, we're not going to go there yet.
Right. So I think I would still block it and think that you're being sweet, but not necessarily truthful.
So, in that positive, she almost validates me. Oh, you're so kind to say that. But in your head starts this almost automatic list of all the things that have gone wrong in your ward in the last 6 months that make you not a good Relief Society president. We couldn't get Sister so-and-so, and we missed that funeral, and I can't get through to Sister so-and-so. There's just this, and I don't know what to do about this. You know, you just start you become defensive. So what I gave to build becomes a tool to tear down. You see? Now, praise frequently is, it's often used with superlatives. So if I say, you are the best Relief Society president, that we're putting them right into pride because we've created win-lose. If you are the best, somebody else is the worst, or less, or second anyway. If you have 2 children in a car and you say, you are the best little student, what did you just say by default to the other 2 children in the car? You're not as good. We got the best little student here. That means you are not as good. Now, that's not your intention. What you're trying to do is validate this little one to make them feel like, whoa, you are so smart. Okay? But by default, it becomes demeaning. And even to the one that you say it to, they immediately, yes, but last week I got a B, and before that I really missed that, and I missed an assignment. You see, again, they start that mental thing of defense because it is too hard to bear the burden of being the best. Because if I'm the best right now, am I the best in tomorrow? Tomorrow will I still be the best? When one of the siblings gets a better grade, then I'm not the best? You see, it's too hard to bear that burden. And one of the things about praise is, it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole. If I'm good enough right now, in a half hour, am I still good? And in an hour, am I still good? And tomorrow, am I still good? And praise becomes something that is insatiable, and it becomes addictive.
Conditional. It becomes conditional.
Yes, and it's addictive. I need more and more and more. To make me feel like a person of value, I just need more and more and more and more and more of it. Because if I'm good now, am I still good? And am I still good? Am I still okay? And so it just becomes this addictive thing. It is only temporary. It's very, very temporary. It doesn't build them from the inside out, so it becomes something that can help them throughout their life. It doesn't motivate them. They're always in competition. And what it often generates tattling or arguing or things, saying unkind things about other people, pulling them down so you can look better, that you're always on this competition level when we raise our kids with praise. Now, praise is focused on product, the end product. So you're good if you produce, because the product makes you good. So, you are my best little helper because you got your room all clean. So if I don't have a clean room, I'm not good. My room's not clean, so I can never be best. So I don't have that value. So do you see where it's always based on a product, and it tends to increase competition. It increases the feeling of competition, which is exactly what last week we tried to get out of our home. And praise, this feeling of praise, the words of praise will do that. Now, it's a positive. You say, but I'm giving them a positive. So let's look at encouragement so that we can compare the two, and you can see where one is a value and one is not. Encouragement, then, is not based on product. Do you realize you can only praise somebody if the product is good? Wonderful. Then they get praise. What if their product is not good? What if they're getting a D? What if the product is not good? Encouragement is based on effort and improvement. So if they put forth effort, we focus on it. We never focus specifically giving these positives directed at the value of the child. That's what praise does. Encouragement focuses on effort or improvement. So I really like how hard you worked on that spelling test. I appreciated your focus as we studied spelling today. You're the best little person for studying your spelling. But I appreciate how you stayed focused as we studied spelling today. I appreciate how hard you worked on that science project. You put a lot of effort into that. Encouragement then says as you validate effort, the person from their inside out says, I am a good person. So their courage comes from inside of them. And that's what we want to develop, because we want them to learn to take this courage with them no matter where they are, where they go. And so we want them to feel a value because it's coming from the inside of them, not because somebody on the outside is telling them their value. Now, if our children are addicted to praise, do you see how that takes away their control over their value? If I'm only valuable if you're telling me I'm a value and you're not saying that today, then today I'm not a very good person. But if they learn that they have control over their own efforts and they have control over their own improvements, then they start to realize that they have value no matter what. And they can even fail, but they're of value. Let me share with you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiment that was done. This was done by a researcher, Carol Dweck. She was at Columbia University, and she's now, I guess, at Stanford University. But this was done with 400 fifth graders, and she wanted to see if there was a difference in results if you used praise or encouragement, if you use these two things. And so that's what this whole experiment was based on, is what's the power, or is there difference between using praise and encouragement? And so they set up a testing to use these different, and they only used, their rule was they could only use one sentence. So they couldn't go off and expound. They had one sentence. So it said they sent 4 research assistants to the New York 5th grade classroom. The researchers would take a single child out of the classroom for a non-verbal IQ test consisting of a series of puzzles. So we're doing it one-on-one, so there's no peer competition. There's just one-on-one, and they're puzzles. The puzzles were easy enough that all of the children could do it fairly well. It wasn't that hard. Once the child finished the test, the researchers told each student his score, then gave him a single line of praise or encouragement, randomly divided into groups. Now here's the key. Some were praised for their intelligence. You must be so smart. And the other students were praised, they're using that same word, for their effort. That's encouragement. And so it would be, you must have worked really hard to get that puzzle right. Okay, that's all. They could only say a single line. And then they would have another student come out. Why just a single line? We wanted to see how sensitive children were. We had a hunch that one line might be enough to see an effect. Then, after everybody had completed that, then the students were given a choice for a second test round. One choice was that they could do a more difficult test than the first, but the researchers told them that they would learn a lot from attempting the puzzles. And the other choice was, it was an easy test just like the first one. So they were told they could do a hard one that they would learn from, or they could do another really easy one. Which one would they like to do? That was their choice. Of those praised for their effort, 90% chose the harder set of puzzles. For those praised for their intelligence, a majority chose the easy test. The smart kids took the cop-out. Those who were told that they were smart took the cop-out. Why did this happen? When we praise children for their intelligence, that's that praise, that outside. Her study summary said, we tell them that this is the name of the game. Look smart, don't risk making mistakes. And that's what the fifth graders had done. They chose to look smart and avoid the risk of being embarrassed by the harder puzzle. In a subsequent round, none of the fifth graders had a choice. So now we're in round 3, and none of them have a choice. The test was difficult. It was designed for kids 2 years ahead of their grade level. So now we're setting them up for failure. We want that. Predictably, everyone failed. But again, the 2 groups of children, divided at random at the study's start, responded differently. Those praised for their effort on the first test assumed they simply hadn't focused hard enough on this test. They got very involved, willing to try every solution to the puzzles. Many of them remarked, unprovoked, "This is my favorite test." Not so for those praised for their smarts. They assumed their failure was evidence that they weren't really smart at all. Just watching them, you could see the strain. They were sweating and miserable. Having artificially induced a round of failure, the research then gave all of the fifth graders a final round of tests that were engineered to be as easy as the first test. So now we're going back to the easy first one. Those who had been praised for their effort significantly improved their first score by about 30%. Those who had been told they were smart did worse than they had at the very beginning by about 20%. Dweck had suspected that praise could backfire, but even she was surprised at the magnitude of the effect. Emphasizing effort gives a child a variable they can control, she explained. They come to see themselves in control of their success. Emphasizing natural intelligence takes it out of the child's control and provides no good recipe for responding to a failure. I thought that was an extremely interesting study. That's just one sentence. That was with just one sentence. They were motivated to face failure, and as a matter of fact, it was actually kind of exciting. It just challenged them that if they felt like if they worked harder, tried harder, that they could do it. And so that's the difference between the results of praise and encouragement. So what we want to do is to learn how to use encouragement. What's the difference? How do you say words that are encouraging? Now, we'll talk about how to format this and exactly what to do. But key is, if your intention is to get the child to produce your goal, even if you try to use encouragement, it will usually backfire. Your intention has to be honest and sincere. For example, if you go home and you say, okay, I'm gonna get this encouragement thing down, and I'm gonna watch what I say. And so you say to your child, it looks like you've really worked hard on that. But then you say, you put in the prick. It's about time. Or I told you if you did, you'd get good grades. Or why haven't you been doing that all the time? Do you see, if you add a prick, you've wiped out encouragement. So sometimes we just have to do an I told you so, and that will make whatever you said ineffective. It just wipes it out. And you would have been better off not to say anything. So you've got to you just can't use that kind of verbiage with your children. You can't tell them the I told you so. Just encourage them for what they are. And remember, encouragement is focused on effort, and praise is focused on achievement. And that's the best way. Now, if you go to page 57, what we're going to do is go through these and see how you can take a praised comment and turn it into encouragement. And see how slight a difference you make in your verbiage, but how huge is the difference in their ability to become self-encouraging and self-focusing, self-functioning, and able to be resilient from failure. Okay, look at the first one and look at the praise one, and it says, what a good girl you are for helping me in the supermarket today. Do you see the value judgment there? Good girl. What if you hadn't helped? Does that make you a bad girl? Do you see? That becomes praise. There's that value judgment in there. You want the value judgment to come from the inside of them out, not them becoming dependent on you giving them the value. So the better way would be to say, I really appreciate your help in the supermarket today. There's no value judgment. You are not good or bad. It's an I message of I appreciate your help. And they say, from the inside. Ooh, I'm good. That was good. I made mom happy. Woohoo, that's good. But that comes from the inside of them. Now, the other thing is, could all of your children receive that same compliment if they were all good? Absolutely. There's no competition. But if you say, you were the best little helper in the supermarket, then the other two are not very good. And if you put them in competition, the other two will stop trying. But if you say, I appreciate your effort, can everybody be a winner? You bet. Then these two can say, well, I could try harder, and I can do that too. I can do that too. You're not making it so one can do it and everybody else can't. You're not pitting them against each other. Does that make sense?
Is there a place to do that though, to like praise a kid for helping you the most, or you know what I mean? Like
No.
No, you never want to like give a kid credit.
What
for
was the
helping
key?
you.
What was the key in that sentence?
The most.
The most.
Right.
Can you give a child appreciation for helping? Always, always, always. But when you say the most, you've put them in competition with each other. So, yes. Anytime they do what's right and good, yes. You validate. But it's so that every other child can also put forth that effort and be validated just the same.
Because I can hear my kids like, well, I did, like they their, desire to do things or whatever, I guess it's based on feeling like, okay, I got credit for this or whatever.
That shows a little bit of addiction to praise. And I'm just saying, once you change the way you say it, you will find them being less dependent on it. You don't want them seeking it. You want to give it. You want to be generous. We're going to talk about that. It's your homework. You're going to be generous in giving it. But when they come seeking it, am I good? Is this good? Is this good enough? Did you like this? Is this okay? Did you like this? That shows a child that's dependent on the outside strokes and will become it becomes hard when they get out in the real world and nobody's there that loves them as much as you do and can stroke them as much as you do, and then they start feeling defeated by life and by failure and by the world. Trace?
But I think that there's a process of teaching our children that certain kids get encouragement at different times, and it doesn't mean they're less, but we can all together, because the world says if you're not the one getting the compliment, then you are less. And so at least in my home, I found that I had to teach my kids that doesn't mean that you're not, but we're just excited that, he worked so hard and that's so great, and help them to encourage as well instead of the focus always being here. But I found in my family that there is a process of teaching my kids that not everybody gets a compliment at the same time, gets encouragement at the same time. Just because you do doesn't mean you're not, but it doesn't mean I'm going to turn and give you the same encouragement just because John got it. Does that make sense?
And that's exactly right. And it comes back to pride of last week, where we don't try to make everybody equal. That would be okay if I give you one, I give you one. And if I give you this, then I get that. It is teaching part of pride. Remember, one of your homeworks was to help your children see good in others. And this is one of those things where at one time, one child is going to be the star. That doesn't mean you're not the star. It means at another time you're the star. But Tracy's right on. It's not everybody always. That's real life. Back and then, yes.
Okay, so if you have, your 3 kids in the store and one of them's sitting with you and staying with you and the other 2 are playing hide and go seek and running through the aisles. So it would be okay to just give the one that's staying with you, say, I really appreciate you
Yes,
helping me
but
with
be sure
that.
the others can hear it.
Without saying anything.
Yes. There's nothing quite as magical as being a primary president and standing out there and saying, oh, I can see Sally. She's got her arms folded. Thank you so much. You don't say, I see Sally is the best, the most reverent. You don't say that. you just say, I see Sally's got her arms folded. What if you already, by default, you've invited every child in the room, and suddenly you'll see every one of them. And then you better start saying a lot of names. A lot of names. Because they need to know that they too can be appreciated for effort. And in that case, the effort was folding your arms. So, see how that goes?
I found that, and we're not really great at this, but as I've learned this and tried to do better, I found that when you encourage one, then they are more willing to help the others to do the same. But when you praise them and say that they're the best, then they don't want to help the others because they want to stay at the top. But if you encourage one, then they feel better and they want the other one to also get it. Does that make sense?
That's the goal. That's the goal. You got it. That's the goal. Absolutely, is take them out of competition. And this is one of the things that we unintentionally put them into competition by using these words wrong. Yes.
So when I was a kid, my mother was not the best one, but she would buy one of us a treat at the store. Like we were all at the store and one of them was better. She wouldn't necessarily ever say anything, but isn't that the same thing as praise?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah,
Just wanted
it is.
to make sure.
Absolutely. It can be with words or things. It's anything that pits, and it's outside, and it's superlative. Oh, you're the best, so you get the treat. Outside. And that raises an expectation of, if I do good, you owe me. You owe me. You owe me. And so we unintentionally, in trying to motivate, create entitlement.
And like she was saying, the outside world is, we can teach this and encourage our children for their effort and different things. But you're right, in today's world, the compliments from, other people come from what your child is producing or how they look and I was just sitting here thinking about my 13-year-old beautiful daughter who is already, deals with the insecurities of being a preteen girl. But I have a 10-year-old who has this long red hair, and everywhere we go, they wanted to comment on her hair. Oh, look at that redhead. Oh, lucky you to have this long, beautiful red hair. And then my 13-year-old daughter, she has beautiful long brown hair, but every time she's like, I knew it was going to be Rose. It's always Rose, Sophie's hair, and I wish I was born with that red hair. And as a mother, I'm like, to just start pointing out her, complimenting her good traits. I don't know how to address that when they feel it from the outside world.
Okay, so you brought two good points. Number one, you can't control the outside world.
That's right.
You can't. But what you can control is what's in your home. So I would not say, well, but you.
Okay.
I would say, Sophie? Is her name Sophie?
Ava is my 13 and Sophie's
Okay.
little. Yeah.
So I would say, Abe, what do you think you do well? Let them bring it out. And if not, no, I can't think of anything. Say, you know what? President Nelson, in his talk on Sunday, said that we should pray to know our spiritual gifts. Why don't you and I both pray about it? And you see what you come up with. I'll see what I come up with. And let's figure out what your gift is. And you know what? Sophie didn't do anything for her red hair. That's genetic. I gave it to her. I wouldn't really say that, but it's true. They take your credit for, you did that. Okay, if you look at the bottom of 57, both of those statements I really like because they are encouraging. So the first one is when a child has attempted, a little one, a 3-4-year-old has attempted to pour some milk and has spilled it, you know what your first reaction would be, but a better reaction might be, why don't you try to do it again? I'm sure you can do it. Expressing your faith in their efforts. not in product, in effort. Or the second one, seems you're having some difficulty with school. Maybe we could sit down and discuss it when they bring home a less than wonderful report card. Do you see how you're giving them their trials, but also helping them? There's some other good ones on page 58, but we kind of need to go along. Because I want to give you, the syllabus says there's 4 keys, and I'm going to give you 7.
I just want to say something real quick,
Yes.
because I was kind of prompted to say it. But we need to also be talking to ourselves this way. Realize the effort of your heart rather than comparing yourself to other people, because we're going to be on different levels. And I think we realize our heart and what our effort was instead of comparing, then we can feel like we are Heavenly Father's children and feel His love and be grateful for all the blessings He's given us instead of feeling like we are less or not enough.
Well said. That was inspired. Thank you for offering that. Because yes, these go to ourselves too. And we validate ourselves too often with praise because you were raised with praise. So you've got to learn to encourage yourself. Very, very, very well said. Thank you. So I want to give you these 7 keys. And I'm going to try really hard to get through them. So number 1, you've got to learn the language of encouragement. As you tell your children positives this week, I want you to stop and think about how you're saying it. This was one of the hardest things for me to learn in the beginning because I started out as a true praiser. I was raised in an environment where I was not told I did anything well. My dad simply said, if you do it wrong, I'll let you know. So I wasn't validated positively, but I was certainly told when I did it wrong. So then my feeling was, as I raised my children, was that I really want to tell them everything they do good. I want them to know when they're good. I don't want them to have to wait until they leave for college to know they're loved. And somebody says, I really have loved you. I want them to know that I think they're valuable every step of the way. And so I was probably an addictive kind of praiser. I mean, I was always telling them. And so when I learned this and I did a self-evaluation, I realized everything I was doing was wrong. And so I had to change the way. And I literally would say something, stop, think about how I should have said it, and then re-say it. And I'm sure that in that period of time, my children thought I was crazy. But I got it, and I'm much better with my grandchildren because this is a powerful principle. And now as I go into my children's home, because I was able to finally get it, I hear them encouraging their children, not praising them. And that just makes me feel so happy that they don't have to go through what I went through. So learn the language of encouragement, and it may be difficult. But stop and say it right. Don't just say, oh, I blew that one. Stop and say it right. Yes?
I was just going to mention one of the things, my mom was really good at trying to instill that with us, and maybe it comes from her being a teacher, because a lot of times
Yes.
she couldn't say those things, so she had to rephrase it so the kids would do what she needed to do in the classroom. And she was really good when I started with my kids when they were really little. And one of the things she told me that really helped me for encouragement over praise was a lot of times if you think about rephrasing it as a choice rather than a demand, then that encouragement automatically comes out. For example, with a little kid, instead of get your shoes on, we gotta get in the car. Why can't you put your shoes on? You rephrase it to, you wanna wear your blue shoes or your red shoes? Thanks for putting your shoes on, now we can go.
Perfect.
And so that really, really helped me in rephrasing my encouragement and praise by turning it around into a choice rather than a demand.
And that's perfect when you're asking them to do something. Absolutely. Much more encouraging way to get them to do something. And that was that's one of the bullet points there is when you're asking children to do something or correcting misbehavior, focus on what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. Always focus on the positive. That's encouraging. It's very discouraging to a child to say, stop jumping on the bed. They feel like they're bad and they have no value because they did something wrong. You've seen the face fall of kids that you try to correct and say, stop doing that. That doesn't encourage them to want to be better, to do better. They feel defeated. And so say what you want them to do. So in that case, the choices is fabulous. And we'll really get into that when we do discipline. We'll talk a lot about choices. But the other thing is just to say what you want them to do. So you can jump outside on the trampoline. Or you can jump on the floor. Without making a big deal about, don't. Tell them what you want them to do. Always look to direct them to the positive rather than stop the negative. So that's perfect. Perfect.
So my question is redirecting and saying, like, where are we supposed to be jumping? Or a better spot to jump would be the trampoline. Is that still?
Perfect. That's encouraging.
Okay.
But we're kind of going into encouraging discipline, but it's still part of saying encouraging things, directing in an encouraging way. You want them to have the courage to know that they can do right things. And that comes from the inside, and they can self-evaluate. They can give a talk in primary and come home and say, how did you do? And they'll say, I did great. Not because somebody told them they did, but because they feel good about the effort they put in and how it went. Does that make a difference? How many of you, when you do something and nobody oohs and ahs, and you come home and your husband will say, well, how did it go? And you say, well, it was okay. Say it's great. If you worked really hard, say it's great. That's the self-talk. We've got to do it to ourselves too. So you've got to work on, in learning the language of encouragement, to keep their emotional bank account full. An emotional bank account is an account with your emotions, just like a money bank is full of money. You make deposits and you make withdrawals. And in an emotional bank account, it's different because it's 10 to 1. When you do a real negative, when you scold them, when you are really angry with them, that is 10 times more powerful than your positive. So you have to put in 10 positives for 1 negative withdrawal. So the goal is that you've got to keep going. You've got to continuously putting in positives. Now, it doesn't count if your positive is a praise. It only counts if your positive is an encouragement. Because a praise doesn't go in. It kind of just rolls off the top. So it has to be an encouragement. So, homework number 2. I want you to say 10 positives to each child each day. And your spouse.
Each day?
Each day. Not during the week. Each day.
These kids that left the home too, or?
Yeah, what about that? We're at 100.
If you are an empty nester like I am, then that means that you stroke, touch in a positive, encouraging way every child that's away once a day, every child that's home, and each other. It should be 10, but go for 5 if you can't hit 10. I mean, we start effort, we're changing effort. So we're changing percentages. We're just going to put forth greater effort. And then you give yourself credit. So at the end of the day, if you did 2, woohoo! Give yourself credit. It's better than none. So it's okay. Tomorrow do 3. So yes, I mean, we're working on credit. We're working to encourage ourselves as well as them. But remember that emotional bank account has to have deposits before a withdrawal won't affect the relationship.
I follow a lady on Instagram, and she talks a lot about this positive parenting. And one thing she said, it's not just like words all the time, like, but interactions with the kids. So, like, if you wink at you know, from across the room, if you give them a hug or a high five, or it doesn't have to be like just words all the time, because that can sometimes be
Oh, no,
hard
no.
if we're not
No,
there,
and we
you know,
talked
if we're
about,
not
you know, the
used to
8
it.
hugs a day or the 12 hugs a day for maintenance.
Well, just different
Absolutely.
things, just different
Absolutely.
interactions, but positive
Absolutely.
things that show your love for them and different.
Yes, but they just have to be those positive encouragements. You have to be sure, that's right, that's so right. But you have to be sure. I had a lady in one of the other classes that got really mad at one of her kids. I don't know what it was about. She just said, I was really, as a teenager, she said, I was just so mad at him. And she said, and I felt myself withdraw my love. She withdrew because she was so mad. And the child came to her later on in the day and said, I'm sorry. And she wouldn't let her in. You know, and she says, well, that's just fine. You know, it didn't let her in. So you have to be careful that even when you're doing your hugs or your winks or your touches, that it's not just a reward for some behavior that you want. Does that make sense? So they share with you after school a whole bunch, and of course that's something you really like. So you squeeze them and hug them and tell them the best child they are. That's not it. If they're passing you by and you hug them or you wink at them and they haven't, you know, it's not a reward for something, absolutely it counts. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. Those things are all validations. Make sense?
So this morning before my son was leaving, I said to him, hey Ben, can I give you a hug? And he said, no Mom, you already gave me one this morning. Have a good day. And I was like, oh, that little turd. I just don't know what to do with him sometimes. He's 13, so I'll give him one when he gets home and say, you had one this morning, this is your afternoon.
That's good. Sometimes you don't ask them permission because you know they'll say no. You just do it. Number 2, learn your child's love language. Every child you can validate in a different way. So always watch your verbal. Always watch your verbal. But then you learn their love language, and you'll find different ways. Some of them you can write a note. Some of them you can, you know, they want more touches. So learn what says I love you to them, because that becomes those additional validations. Watch your language, but also learn what says I love you to them. And then do not worry or try to make it even for everybody. Help each child be loved and feel love in their own way. Number 3, have talk time with children, and I really probably missed that, and Andrew, you can change it in the next syllabus, because I would rather have it say have listen time with your children. And it has to be one-on-one, and there can be no hidden agendas on your part. You can't want to talk to them and ask them about their day, so eventually you can say, and you didn't get your room done this morning. Your talk time really has to be just listen time. And in that, you need to listen on 4 levels. You need to listen with full attention. You need to not be on a phone. You need to not be doing dinner. You need to not be doing a baby. You need to listen by showing them that you have full attention. You need to be listening to their feelings, which are oftentimes communicated by body language more than words. So be listening to what you think their feelings are, and then asking them, you seem to be frustrated. Am I right? You know, ask, validate, be sure that you're understanding, you're not just understanding words, but you're listening to their feelings. And then as you listen to the feelings and you make that validation, listen to understand their perspective. You're not listening to teach them what's right. You're listening to understand where they're coming from. And it may or may not be your right. But you need to understand that foundation before at a different time you can teach them the rightness or wrongness of it. Right now, they just need to be understood. And listen that as you do that, you can identify any needs that they have that might need to be met. So you're listening with a purpose, not just listening to hear words. So let me give you a little bit of an example. Lucy's just unloaded her problem. Then you remember these 3 listenings. Now, these listenings validate her feeling that you care about her. Not that you're there to solve the problem's not the most important thing. She is the most important thing. That's what happens when you listen. As you listen on those 4 levels, then Lucy, she might say something like, she may have somebody that's bothering her at school. And you say, you know, honey, that's got to be hard, and I bet you're getting tired of it. And she says, I am getting tired of it. I really want to beat him up. Bite your tongue. Keep listening. Don't say at that point, yeah, that's wrong. We don't beat each other up. You know, don't do that. So you might say something like, I don't blame you. I think I might feel the same way if I were you. Now, you're not validating her beating the person up. You're validating her right to feel real frustrated if somebody's annoying her like that. You have to notice her words are expressing her need, and she's talking about needing you to understand her feelings. If you do anything else, if you start lecturing her, you only further frustrate her and her situation. But as long as you keep listening and validating, you allow her to come to her own resolution of the problem. You're giving her courage. If Lucy asks you what she should do to stop his tormenting, you need to say, I'm not sure. What do you think would work? And what have you done? You've turned it back to her and expressing faith that she's capable of doing it. And then letting her come up with some answers. So it's important that you listen on levels that give them the courage to come up with their own answers. Okay, number 4. You need to help them to learn problem ownership. Problem ownership is a little bit tricky for parents because parents want to be fixers. I want to fix your problem. I want to tell you what to do under the guise of I'm teaching you. And in reality, we've probably already taught the principles, and now they need the opportunity to learn how to implement the principles. So problem ownership is allowing them to have their own problem. So if you go to page 61, you'll see the steps to problem ownership. So the child comes in with a problem, then you are going to ask questions that literally will walk them through the resolution of the problem without you solving it. So how do you feel about that? What do you think you could do about that? Wow, that's a big project. How are you going to organize your time? So you're asking questions that lead them to resolution without you saying, oh, I see you have a big project. I think you need to spend a half hour on it every day so you don't leave everything to the very end. And you need to start on that right now and get it done before dinner. You see, we have this tendency to solve it for them and don't, but walk them through resolution and always with problem ownership. Without you taking on their problem, you have to say, how can I help you? Is there something I can do? And they may say, yeah, could you buy me some poster boards? You say, you bet. I can do that. But at the end of any problem ownership, probably will take several sessions. You'll talk about it. You won't resolve it. So you'll talk about it again, and they'll talk about how they've implemented some solutions, and they may or may not have worked, and so that you're going to come back and readdress it. But in none of these are you going to resolve for them, but you're going to ask questions that help them form resolution. But at every single one,
You will bear your testimony that you know they can handle it. You will express your faith in their ability and your desire to help if they need you. But you won't resolve for them. If that makes sense. Now, with this being said, I'm going to throw out a real disclaimer that is really going to make some of you uncomfortable. And that's okay. Sometimes, when they're learning, when you're teaching and they're learning problem ownership, you have to let them fail. It's better that they fail in little things here than in big things later in life. They can't learn how to deal with failure unless they experience failure. So it's important that if you see their problem resolution not going to work, but it's nothing that's, critical, let them have some failures. And then you help them learn how to get up from a failure. And as Elder Robbins said, never let failure progress from an action to an identity. And when we get too involved in taking on their problems and they fail, then we look at them as a failure. And it becomes an identity. And we can't do that. They are successful. They just failed in an experience. And how can we help them feel successful and feel? I love this. This was in a talk. This was by Elder Robbins. And this was just given in April, last April conference. He said, success, it has been said, isn't the absence of failure, but going from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm. With his invention of the light bulb, Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. Hopefully, each mistake we make becomes a lesson in wisdom, turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones. So if we don't ever let them fail, they can't learn that lesson. So they need to have some failures. These lawnmower moms or helicopter moms are, we just make the way so smooth that they never have a failure, and then they don't learn, and then they leave home, and life's tough. You go on a mission. A mission's hard work. And there are a lot of days they feel like an absolute failure when they've knocked doors all day, or their companion won't do what he's supposed to do, or they just feel like they're giving all they can and nothing's going right. They have got to know this concept of failure and how to get up and how not to let it defeat them. But if they've never experienced it, if you've protected them, then they can't have that strength. So don't you get uptight when they have what you consider a failure. Number 5, cultivate creative thinking. This comes partly in problem ownership, in letting them to have problem ownership, but it also comes in how you structure your homes. You need to take them out of screen time, teach them little people to use their imagination and create fun games. Have them have imaginary games where they have imaginary friends and they play in imaginary islands, or they're imaginary school teachers, or you see them putting on capes and being superheroes and running around the yard. They have got to have time to play. They've got to have tools, meaning dress-ups or blocks or, whatever. And they have to have encouragement. Your little people, and you'll start seeing this about age 3 or 4, where they come to you and they're bored. And you need to create something for them to do. And they're dependent on you saying, well, why don't you go play blocks? Well, why don't you go read a book? Well, why don't you come here and we'll make cookies? Well, why don't you? And you are creating their world for them, and they're dependent on you to be their source of entertainment. And in creative thinking, you have to create an environment where you will not be the entertainer, but they will feel comfortable learning how to create, imagine, they go off and they put together a play, and then they come back and they want you to watch it. Yeah, watch it. They're usually really dumb. But be excited and be happy and enjoy it. Or they'll go and they'll put together an acrobatic show and they want you to come watch them do cartwheels. And after they've spent a time putting it together, then it's good for you to come and watch it. But if you're involved in all of this, and it is just a ploy to get you engaged in them again, with them again, so watch how it's good for you to go watch their, whatever they've done. That's good. But don't let them just use that to draw you into your constant entertaining them. You have got to let them learn to create all kinds of things in their own world.
I'm struggling with ways to do that with teenagers.
Aren't they fun?
Yeah.
Well, just like little people, they may need help in suggesting. But teenagers, you can get them involved in service projects. You can get them involved in, at this time of the year, making Christmas presents. You can get them engaged. They just have to, this is where they need hobbies. Teenagers need hobbies, little people need hobbies, so that when they have spare time, they need to learn how to put good things in it, and it's not being commanded in all things. Does that make sense? Yes?
So what if their hobby is programming?
They need to learn another hobby. That doesn't mean they can't have that. But they need to be able to learn to do things, I think, non-screen.
I agree. I just struggle with that because my husband's a computer programmer and he is encouraging my son to program.
Sure, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they need something else too. I wouldn't say don't do that. No. Or have them create a program that's got some imagination in it, or something more fun, You want them to use imagination and tools. Now, they like to read the wizardry books, the Harry Potter books, all these fantasy books, and they live in a world of imagination, but they don't create their own world of imagination. Somebody else has to bring it to them, or you have to tell them what to do, or it has to come from the outside. We want them to come from the inside. We have them create a home evening. Have them create a family activity for Saturday afternoon. Have them learn to be responsible in creative ways. You're in charge of decorating the house for Halloween. You're in charge of creating a play for spooky for Halloween. Yes?
My 11-year-old daughter just the other day emptied a room out of all her dolls, bins and bins of dolls. And I used to see her, she'd go in there and play for hours creating families and homes and different events and things. And I used to sit and watch her and it just really made my heart smile. And then my heart sank because she goes, I'm too old for that now. She got rid of all her stuff out of her room to the garage sale. And then there's her imagination.
No, she just has to redirect it.
I have to find something.
That's right. She just has to redirect it. And they will outgrow some stuff. And that's okay. It's part of growing up. But redirect, and help them. You may need to help them find, especially if they haven't grown up from being very young in creating their own worlds and imagination, you may have to help them figure out. But it's really good to get them involved in hobbies, in some kind of woodworking or a painting or sculpting. Or I have a daughter-in-law who gets her kids this little bars of sculpting clays. You'd be surprised. They make whole villages out of these sculpting clays. And then you bake them and then they paint them. And do you want a whole house full of little sculpted doodads? The answer is no. But for right now, yes. That's how you decorate your home, in little sculpted doodads all over the house. Because that's what they do. And encourage them and validate them and display it and make nativities out of Legos. Just do. Yes.
I have a question. My adult son, he's 22, at school, he served a mission, and he was seriously addicted to video games for years and years. And part of that my husband is. So that was a big struggle on how to, anyway. so he is really struggling right now with figuring out what to do, because he got rid of his video games, he doesn't want that life. And so he calls me a lot, you know, I don't know what to do, I don't have any money, you know, I'm at school in Provo. How do I help him figure out things that he likes to do that don't cost money? That should I have him, you know, what are your gifts, what are your talents? A lot of that is, you know, technical computer type stuff. He also is very good at that. I mean, I don't know.
Yes, you might have him, you know, now, I don't know our son, and I have no, you know, authority here, but things like saying, could you put together a fun slide presentation of the Christmas story that we could use on Christmas Eve on the computer, so that we could have that for our program for Christmas Eve? Now, it doesn't cost any money, it's using his talents, it's some creativity. If you get them involved in serving out, it will help their imagination get perked, because they come in contact with other people. If you, some kind of a thing where they have to go out and talk to other people and get ideas, and you know, that is always helpful. But they have to be on the lookout of wanting and seeking, and you just help make those things available. So number 6, set goals and achieve. That has everything to do with PPIs. It has to do with them, whatever they decide to do, whether it's play a sport. What are your goals in the sport? What are your personal goals? What's your personal goal for it? These are personal. These are not team. Yippee skippy, we took the state championship. These are your personal things. How are you going to achieve and grow and develop in that experience? What are your goals going to be? And that with PPIs, you return a report. You set goals. They set goals. They set their steps. You return and report. You see how you can help them in those steps. They may change their goals, set new goals. The whole church is based on goals. Everything is based on setting and achieving goals. Our young women's scouting, and scouting's going, I know that, but whatever program comes in next will be set on goals. It will be set on setting and achieving and setting and achieving and setting and achieving. And our problem is that when we are young, until we leave home at 18, we use the church programs, and we use school, who has goals that you have to do this for this grade, and you do this and this assignment, all outwardly set for us. And we accept them, and we do them so we can be successful. But as we go along, we're not necessarily taught to set our own inside goals, our personal goals. That is the habit we carry on to life. Now, if we're not setting personal goals and achieving them, it's really hard to know if we're moving towards exaltation. Because we have nothing to gear ourselves. We have no way of evaluating. But if we set a goal, this year from my birthday to my birthday, I am going to whatever, and I see myself succeed in that goal, then next year I can set another goal, and you see yourself progressing a little at a time. But this is where they learn to set inside goals, and the success of those goals teaches them to validate themselves from the inside out. And step number 7 is to teach them that Heavenly Father loves them, and because He loves them, He gave them divine spiritual gifts and helped them discover what they are. And just as President Nelson said, how to cultivate them and how to use them. And they will bring them personal joy, as well as they will bring joy to those around them. Okay, I want to close with a poem that I want to share with you. Your homework: validate 10-1. Notice your language if you're using encouragement or praise, and listen or read. I guess at this stage you're going to have to listen to President Nelson's talk in the women's session, and pray to find out your own spiritual gifts. And as he said, how to cultivate them, how to use them, and how to expand them. Now, I want you to know that for you to pray or not to pray, either way, but to say, well, I just don't have any, is pride. That very fact is the bottom looking up. We know that everyone has them because the Lord told us that in Doctrine and Covenants, section 46. So we know that everybody has them. It's a matter of finding them, accepting in gratitude what they are, and asking Him how to use them to serve His children. So the answer is never, is not, will never be, I don't have any. It's finding out what they are. And let me just put a little PS. I have got a meeting in Boise right after this, so I can't stay and chat today. So I will be out of here quickly. I have a Relief Society presidency meeting. So this is in your syllabus. It's on page 62. This is a poem that my sister wrote for me for my birthday one year, and it's about failure. It's about learning to have courage. It's about learning to encourage yourself from the inside out. A spotlight, white and brilliant, lays a circle on the stage, and in the hush there stands there a child of tender age. Slippered for the dance she's learned, she listens small and scared to hear the melody she knows for which she has prepared. She knows out in the darkness, just beyond the light, her father in the first row will watch her dance tonight. Familiar, lovely music begins to fill her ears. Her small slippers start to dance despite her childish fear. Carefully remembering each spin and turn and bow, she dances to the edge of light and pauses to look out. But all there is darkness, missteps, and then she falls. From somewhere just beyond the light, her name is softly called. Go on. Go on, keep dancing. I'm here where you can't see. But oh, my ballerina, you're so beautiful to me. At his voice, she rises and dances till it's done. Then there he is embracing when the curtain comes. All mistakes forgotten, she triumphed in the light because her loving father watched her dance tonight. You're the ballerina, and life becomes your stage. This is your chance, your time to dance, your chosen epic age. When the world would blind you and hide him from your sight, no father cares, and that he's there just beyond the light. Wishing he could save you when you stumble and you fall, knowing you by very name softly, he will call. Go on, keep dancing. I'm here where you can't see. But oh, my ballerina, you're so beautiful to me. And at his voice you'll know him. You'll rise and dance again. You'll wear out slippers trying to dance the dance like him. When the music dies away and finally it is done, there he'll be embracing when to the veil you come. All mistakes forgiven, you triumphed in the light because a loving father watched you dance tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ.